Over the last few years, we have seen an explosion of high-income ETFs, all designed to generate the highest possible yield. Now, many of you guys have been asking about a specific high-income ETF that has been turning heads, particularly over the last few months, which currently has an unbelievable dividend yield of over 45%. And the craziest part is that it distributes its dividends every single week. The ETF has only been out for a little over a year and has already accumulated over $1 billion in assets under management. So clearly there's a lot of interest in this ETF, but at the same time, it has actually been able to crush every popular index in the market, returning over 200% in just 1 year, versus the QQQ's 65% and the S&P 500's 41%. And the best part is that the ETF is focused towards semiconductors, the companies that are driving this AI boom to new levels. However, given that we are at a major high within this AI boom and there has been growing skepticism of a potential reversal, even from prominent bullish investors such as Tom Lee, we really need to discuss and determine whether this ETF can still serve as a core growth holding for income investors moving forward, and whether that 45% dividend yield is actually worth it, and more importantly, what the risks are. And this brings me to CHPY, which is the YieldMax Semiconductor Portfolio Option Income ETF. Now, I personally haven't been a fan of YieldMax, but I do have to admit I feel like the criticism towards them has really helped them reshape the type of ETFs they're making. They are now moving away from a lot of those single stock high income ETFs and into broad-based ETFs, some with extremely high yields, like the one we're talking about today, CHPY, but some with actually reasonable yields that in my opinion are more sustainable long term. However, I am very impressed with CHPY's overall returns. But before we get into that, let's first run through the fund's fundamentals so that you can get a better understanding moving forward. The ETF was established in April of 2025, and like I said, it already has accumulated over $1 billion in assets under management. In my honest opinion, they created this ETF at a very good time to capitalize on this insane AI boom. Now, currently, the fund has an expense ratio of 1%, which is extremely high and is higher than most other high-income ETFs on the market, but is in line with the majority of YieldMax ETFs. And the reason behind this is actually very clear when you break down its holdings, which I'll show you in just a second. Now, with a dividend yield of 45% listed on their website, you'll notice that on platforms like Seeking Alpha, you'll see a dividend yield of 27%. And that is because the fund has experienced immense capital appreciation over the last few months. And for those that don't know, the dividend yield of a stock or an ETF is determined by dividing its most recent dividend distribution by its share price. The higher the share price goes, the smaller the fraction will be, which is why a fund's dividend yield can drop so significantly in a bull market. But the same also occurs in reverse. When the share price drops, the dividend yield goes much higher. And on Seeking Alpha, you can actually see this perfectly. Right before the markets rallied at the end of March, you see the fund's dividend yield sitting at around 41%. And as the markets rallied and this ETF rallied alongside it, you see the dividend yield drop significantly day after day. So yield is only part of the story. The main thing is the dividend distribution. When you look at the fund's distribution history on Seeking Alpha, you'll notice that for the majority of its lifespan, the distributions were rather consistent. And that was when the fund's total return performance was in a moderately increasing trend. But you'll notice that the dividend distributions have actually increased over the last few weeks. And that is simply the fund managers saying that they've collected more premium income, so they're going to increase the dividend distributions accordingly. Now, as mentioned, the fund has outperformed the broader market significantly since inception, and the fund's momentum score is extremely strong with Seeking Alpha, giving it an A+. It has also ranked #1 in its category among their quant screener, which gives you insights on what ETFs are gaining the most traction through quant analysis. So far, everything is looking pretty good. Now, if you want access to all of the same tools used in this video, Seeking Alpha has just launched their summer sale where you can get 25% off site-wide, and that includes their premium plan, Alpha Picks, and their bundled plan. The sale only lasts for about another week, so you can scan the QR code on screen or use my link down below to take advantage of the sale. Now let's get into the dividends, and this is where I want you guys to pay very close attention because there are 4 things that I want to cover. How does this 45% dividend yield actually work? Is it sustainable? Has the fund suffered any NAV erosion? And is it tax efficient? To start, when you look at the fund's total returns, which is made up of capital appreciation and its dividend distributions, you'll see that the fund has returned around 213% since inception. And of that 213%, 95% was capital appreciation, and the remaining 110% or so was distributed as dividends. Now, you'll notice that there is no NAV erosion. In fact, you see exponential growth. So this must be the perfect high income investment. Well, not exactly. And there is a series of issues here that many investors won't fully comprehend unless they start to consider the other side of the equation. First, let's look at the fund's holding breakdown because that's where you get an idea of what you're actually buying into. This ETF is purely concentrated within technology. And although you see 123 holdings, which would theoretically be more than the QQQ, the ETF only holds between 15 to 30 individual stocks, which is very concentrated. That is how the fund is structured, and everything else is made up of option contracts. You see, this fund is at its core a covered call ETF on major semiconductor stocks. But when you look at the holdings breakdown, you'll notice an absolutely insane number of option contracts. We're talking well over 60 to 70 different contracts. And I really haven't seen such a complex holding breakdown from an ETF before. And immediately, what this tells me is that the fees for running these strategies are adding up significantly. And that is why the fund has such a high expense ratio of 1%. But there's also something else you'll notice. When a fund is selling a call option, that number appears as a negative value in the holdings breakdown. But you'll also notice a series of call options with positive values, meaning they're actually purchasing a lot of call options on individual stocks as well. So the fund managers aren't just deploying a simple covered call strategy. They're actually deploying a series of call spreads at the same time. And a call spread is simply when you sell a call option and buy one at the same time. And the purpose is to boost total return potential. The call option they buy acts as exposure to the underlying stock. So when the stock goes up, sure, the covered calls could cap its growth potential, but the purchase call option can increase in value and boost total returns. And what I like about this is that it's deployed on individual stocks, which actually gives fund managers a lot of flexibility. They may choose not to sell a call option on a stock that is growing exponentially and instead choose to sell a call option on a stock that is trending relatively flat. Now, when we compare this ETF to others, we can't really look at the QQQ. We actually have to look at prominent semiconductor ETFs, and the closest one is SOXX, which is the iShares Semiconductor ETF. When you compare these two ETFs side by side, you see that their price action is actually very similar. Although there are slight deviations because YieldMax fund managers are likely choosing to allocate a little more to certain holdings compared to SOXX, but it's really not that significant. So essentially what you're getting is a high income version of SOXX with a dividend yield of 45% that is distributed every single week. But here's the issue. When you look at the total returns of both ETFs side by side, you'll notice that SOXX has provided over 70% more growth relative to CHPY, where SOXX has returned 280% compared to CHPY's 213%. That is a massive gap in total returns. Now, we know that high income ETFs will lag the underlying index they closely track. When you look at GPIQ and the QQQ, you'll also notice underperformance over the long term. However, the gap in that performance is not as drastic. You see an underperformance of roughly 12% compared to CHPY's underperformance of 30% relative to SOXX. And the reason simply comes down to volatility. When you have an ETF that is so concentrated, you have one major issue. If and when we see selling pressure, the premium income that CHPY collects is not going to meaningfully cushion the volatility of its underlying exposure. In fact, when you look at recent volatility, they nearly replicate each other. That's because premium income can only do so much, especially when you're selling it on individual stocks. So your downside is never capped. It can continue to fall and you might cushion it by maybe 1 to 2%, but the upside is capped. So when you have underlying holdings that are very volatile, that can fluctuate 15% up and 15% down within weeks, capping the upside to let's say 10% or even 5% while leaving the downside fully exposed can cause heavy underperformance in the long term. And I think CHPY is simply fortunate that it hasn't seen prolonged selling pressure yet. When the time comes, the fund managers have to be extremely careful with their covered call strategy. They can't be long on so many calls, and they have to manage it actively in order to avoid a sudden underperformance or an inability to recover after a prolonged sell-off. Because then sustaining those dividend distributions will become extremely difficult, which will start eating into the fund's NAV very quickly. That's why I've always been saying that high income ETFs that carry more volatility than the basic indexes like the QQQ shouldn't really serve as core holdings. I personally would rather just invest in the semiconductor stocks themselves and then get my income from a different ETF like GPIQ or QQQI. Now, with that being said, there is another benefit to CHPY, and that is its tax efficiency. But there are a few nuances here. When you look at its dividend distributions on their website, they've broken down how much of those distributions were classified as return of capital. And you'll see that it fluctuates quite a bit. Some weeks it's 0%, other weeks it's 100%, another week it's 20%. So it's definitely not consistent, and this is something investors have to keep in mind because the returns you're seeing on paper are not what you're actually going to be left with at the end of the day. A large majority of these distributions are likely falling under regular income, and unless you're holding CHPY in a Roth IRA, those dividends will be taxed at your regular income tax bracket. So my honest verdict is that YieldMax has done a very good job with this ETF. But it is still a very concentrated ETF with a very high expense ratio that is subject to a lot of volatility. And if and when the markets suffer, I think CHPY could struggle in the recovery stage. And then once we see sideways moving market trends, that's when we'll see NAV erosion start to eat into the fund because the yield is simply too high to sustain. And that is all for this one. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Discussions of ETFs, investing strategies, market updates, or specific funds are general, not tailored to your financial situation, and should not be relied upon for decision making. Investing involves significant risks, including total loss of principal, and past performance does not guarantee future results. I am not a registered financial advisor. My content reflects personal research and publicly available information. I may earn affiliate commissions from mentioned products or links disclosed per FTC guidelines, but these do not influence my opinions. Always consult a licensed financial professional and verify information independently. By watching this, you agree I am not liable for any losses or consequences from your actions. International viewers should consult local regulations.